And every day, I practice martial arts.
So you have this different hypothesis about how Bruce Lee passed, which is the heat stroke hypothesis. Now, why do you think this was not something that people may have suspected early, and why do you think that this might be a possibility?
So the key to me in trying to solve what happened to Bruce Lee was the fact that he nearly died from the same thing 10 weeks earlier. And that's the key, is that he died July 20th, 1973, and May 10th, 1973, 10 weeks earlier, he was in a dubbing room that was extremely hot because they turned off the air conditioning, and he displayed all the signs of heat stroke. He got dizzy, he passed out, he vomited. They rushed him to the hospital and diagnosed him with having cerebral edema, which is swelling of the brain, and they gave him a medication to stop the swelling. And the doctor said they just barely saved his life and time. And heat stroke can cause swelling of the brain. So those were the two things I'm looking for, which is Bruce Lee died on July 20th from a swollen brain from the autopsy. And there are only very few things that can cause swelling of the brain. It's not like a heart attack. You know, if he died of a heart attack, we would have no idea why he died. So I was looking for something that would cause cerebral edema, and heat stroke is one of the few things that will do that. And then I was looking for something that explains the previous collapse. And the previous collapse was it's pretty obviously a case of heat stroke. And then I looked at the situation on the day of, which is more complicated because everybody involved is not fully forthcoming, Betty Ting Pei or Raymond Chow, on what happened that final day. But there's some indication, which is I looked at the temperature that day. It was the hottest day of the summer. When Raymond Chow talked to me about what happened that day, he said Bruce Lee felt faint, that he had been demonstrating kung fu moves and gotten kind of dizzy. So it looked like a similar case to what had happened 10 weeks earlier. And heat stroke, I was also looking for something that kills young athletic men. And doing the research, 3 to 5 high school football players die a year from heat stroke to this day. Young Army athletes, young Army soldiers die from heat stroke. It's one of the things you worry about with young men who do exercise in the heat. And so it fit all the sort of criteria. Yeah. And then, of course, I looked at all the other possible theories like aspirin, asphyxia, anaphylactic shock from allergic reaction to aspirin. And that just, for various reasons, didn't fit in. So it was a combination of feeling like this was the strongest theory and that the other theories had too many weaknesses. But again, because it's such a hot topic and people who love Bruce Lee love to argue about it, I must repeat, it's a theory. I could absolutely be wrong. We will never know why Bruce Lee died for sure. All we can do is postulate a hypothesis and test it, and then people can decide for themselves.
And that's also, I think, one of the reasons why people should read your book, too, because you have this great theory about how he passed away. But you're unlike other theories, you're not saying, well, this is it. And if you don't believe me, you're an idiot right. and you're completely crazy. And I think, that one of my issues with the official, he took, Equagesic, which is basically just an aspirin with a little muscle relaxant in it or something, and that would cause brain swelling, is that it doesn't explain the May 10th occurrence. That's because right. if they're so similar, and literally the difference between the two is one he got to the hospital in time, the other one he didn't. And what is the common denominator? Well, he did not take Equagesic the first time. So I never understood how they made that jump for the second occurrence. It definitely doesn't explain it at all.
Also, didn't he have a procedure done?
Dre wants to know about the sweat glands.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So that was another sort of smoking gun, which is about 4 months before he died, or maybe 6 months. He went into a cosmetic doctor complaining about the fact that he was on screen and he had these really sweaty armpits, and it was causing them to have to do reshoots, and it was a real pain. And apparently at that time, they thought it was a good idea to remove people's sweat glands.
Crazy.
And I know somebody who had my age whose mother had this surgery done. So apparently in the 70s, this was not uncommon as a cosmetic surgery. And so that would have reduced his ability to dissipate heat. So he has an operation that reduces his ability to dissipate heat. And then summer comes around, he collapses in a hot room. And then on the hottest day of July, he collapses and dies. That looks like heat stroke. That doesn't look like an aspirin allergy.
Right.
But,
absolutely.
you know,
Word is I'm a kung fu genius. Technique speaks for me, not lineage. Forget Jet Li, cause I'm the one. Many call me seafood, but to you I'm sea gung. And I produce